special kind of white guy. I self-reflected and I wanna.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am talking about another book club. Celine over at The Book Wanderers has set up a book. I think it's Celine Does Stuff. Really should have done that before I started speaking. I'm a special kind of white guy. Okay, so my beautiful friend Celine over at Celine Friend, I think it's literally just Celine Friend on their Insta, has set up the Book Wanderers, which is a book club / readathon where you can follow along on Insta, and there's like a different readathon every 3 months basically, and you're given like 12 prompts each 3 months, which I really wanted to do. And even though I've joined like 8 other book clubs in the last 2 weeks, I just thought, yeah, fuck it, let's just add another one to the list. Now, the upside of this one is, like I said, that it carries over 3 months. So I'm actually a month late on this, but I still have 2 months to like tick off these prompts. So I thought I would share my TBR for the Book Wanderers. Now, like I said, it's on Insta. I will put all of the information below. I will put Celine's stuff below as well. Definitely go and support it because it just looks sick. And the first theme for this readathon is, this book club / readathon, is stargazing, or like wandering in the stars and things like that. So there are a lot of prompts that are related to that or stars adjacent, and they also, because it's a book club, have a book that everyone's going to read. But that I have read, I thought I'd read this really recently, but I have looked and turns out I actually read it 2 years ago. But that is still too recent for me to try and reread it now, and that is La Belle Sauvage, which is the prequel to the His Dark Material series by Philip Pullman. I've actually managed to squeeze the original trilogy into the prompts. I say squeeze like it was difficult. It wasn't difficult. The prompts suit them so down to the ground. But I just thought I would go through the books that I've chosen for the prompts. Like I said, I'll put all the other stuff down below. So I feel like I've explained this twice now. So if you don't understand what's happening, same. The first prompt is to pick a book with a road trip. Now, I tried reading Mosquitoland twice, and it's not even like it was bad, I just couldn't gel with it, and I ended up unhauling it, which is a shame because this would have been so perfect for this prompt. But instead, I've kind of taken it less literally as like on a road, and more just like as a journey with friends and family, or a journey of self, or a mixture of the two, and Northern Lights fits that perfectly. Northern Lights is about a young girl called Lyra who discovers that she's able to use this mechanical thing called an athelometer or something like that. I can never say it. I'm sure you'll correct me in comments. When a friend of hers goes missing, she then goes essentially on a road trip to find him. So that is the first one, and like I said, easy to squeeze that in. The next one is The Subtle Knife, which I've decided to add for my favourite genre, which is another prompt, and again really easy that I could just be like 1 and 2. And then for the third one, for Amber Spyglass, Friendship to Romance, which I think is kind of ambiguous from what I remember, but I do very much remember that Lyra and Will, who turns up in the second book, do become romantically involved in some way because it becomes this whole biblical allegory, and really, it's just an excuse to reread my favourite trilogy and to make sure that it is still my favourite trilogy, because anytime someone asks me what my favourite book is of all time, I always say The Northern Lights, and I always tell the story of how I was only introduced to this trilogy because I was talking to a boy that I fancied, and he was like, oh, it's the only books I've ever read, and I loved them, and I was like, cool, we need something to talk about because we have nothing else in common. So I went away and read them and got like really into them, and now I have a stronger connection to these books than I do with him. I think he's married now. Probably. Every ex-boyfriend or ex-fancy of mine is basically married now anyway. That's what happens when you're 30 years old. So those are the first 3. Like I said, very easy to squeeze those onto these prompts, and it helps because obviously they are adjacent to the book club pick. My only nerves about this is that I am notoriously really bad when trying to read a series all in one go. So we'll see how we go with that one. Next was a book reminding you of better times, and that took me on a bleak emotional roller coaster. I would not recommend, this might feel like a tangent, it isn't. I would not recommend watching the Bo Burnham special on Netflix, Inside, if you're between the ages of 27 and 30 and you don't want Bo Burnham to become a facet of your personality, because I watched it by myself at like 11 o'clock at night, which was not ideal, and now every time I think of, oh, what was a better time, I just think of my childhood when things were just less complicated. And that's really sad, because I have lived 30 years. Surely of those 30 years, it can't just be my childhood that was good, and I know that's not true.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I hope it's not true, but I've decided that I am going to read a book from my childhood, and I'm going to read Ella Enchanted. I was so happy to rediscover this, and this was one of like this was the retelling for me, and it's like a mixture of like Cinderella and a bunch of others, but I remember it being really fun. I remember reading it so much that it fell apart, and I remember getting in trouble a couple of times because I was reading it in class when I shouldn't have been. So it's a nice, easy, middle grade read, and it reminds me of better times when I didn't know about Next is Purple Cover. I did consider using this for the stars prompt as well, but I will not. I'm going to be reading Victory is Greater Than Death. The American front cover for this is so much nicer than the British cover. I can't stand this. There is too much for my eye to look at, and it's a lot. It's a lot. But essentially, this is about an artificial intelligence robot-y thing learning about life and what it means to be ordinary. She's a clone of like a famous hero, which is also her own person. So it sounds intriguing, and it sounds like it's going to be philosophical in a way that my brain probably won't comprehend, but also fuck it, you know? As for the stars prompt, as I kind of just hinted with the last one of the prompts is literally just a book with stars on it. In the Quick has stars all down the spine because it's set in space. And I've literally seen one other person talk about this. And essentially it's about two astronauts who are trying to save part of their crew and then also fall in love, but they're both really difficult people, and I suspect they might also be neurodivergent. Don't hold me to that until I've read it, but I'm really, really excited for this, and I think the fact that so few people have read it will mean that I'm kind of going into this a bit more blind than I would be normally. But I'm really, really intrigued by this one, and it's just a really stunning cover. I love how simple this cover is, and then it just has the cute little stars down the spine. Love that for me. So that is the stars prompt. The next one is a prompt about dreams. I'll be reading Dreams of Gods and Monsters. I was meant to read this for the Laini Taylor read along, and I got to book 2, and then I realised I'd had enough of that series, and I never picked this one up, even though it's been in my TBR 3 times now. So that might be an issue. This is essentially about, it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling in that you've got opposite sides who fall in love, but you've got like angels and demons. In the second book it got a bit wild and the angels kind of came to earth, and this is probably going to be about that, I suspect. So long as Laini Taylor doesn't do the plot twist, and then another plot twist, and then a final plot twist that actually negates the previous 2 plot twists, like she did in the last 2 books, I think we'll be fine. But it is kind of that thing that has me hesitant about this. We'll see. We'll see. But other than that, I'm excited about it, and it is chunky, so I will probably do this as an audiobook alongside the book because I don't have time in my life for chunky books. Or the patience. This was probably a bad idea, but I need to get it right. I just need to get it read, because otherwise I'm just going to have another series that I've started and just never finished on my own TBR, and I can't have that. The next is a book you'd like to be in. Now, I read a lot of fantasy. I don't read very much sci-fi. I read next to no contemporary, unless it's like a romance or by accident. So that didn't leave me with a lot of choice moving forward, because in most of those fantasy worlds, whether they're high fantasy or low fantasy, things are expected of people, and people that don't have superpowers tend to die very quickly. And I was thinking, where is a fantasy world that I've come across recently that maybe there's like another book in the series of, or like a spin-off of, where I know that I could survive that world, just either by sheer wit, or if I did die, I'd probably have a blast before that. That's why I've chosen How the King of Elfhome Learned to Hate Stories. I feel like, of all the fantasy worlds, this is the one that I could handle. Avoiding certain foods, keeping salt on my person, and making sure that I don't sign up to any stupid deals, I'd probably survive it. Out of all the fantasy worlds, it's the one that I'm most convinced I could survive. And otherwise I'd have picked something like this where it's just like an alternate London/Oxford that I could deal with, and the only thing different is like one magical element. But I'd already picked these, so it just seemed like a sensible thing. I'm not going into a world that I can't maintain/control. Worst case scenario, I get kicked out of Elfheim and I have to hang out in America instead. That I can deal with. I can deal with that. Next is a thrilling book. Now this is one of the books that I have promised to unhaul if I don't read it. So if I do not read this during, well, I've got like 6 months left of my 12 months till they self-destruct, but to be honest, if I don't read this for Book Wanderers, I just won't read it. So I can't remember what this is about. I just remember that everyone really liked it, and when I spotted it in a charity shop, I was like, yeah, sure, everyone's been talking about it, saying it's really great. And now that I have it, I don't care. So priority-wise, it's not in the top 5, but it's on there so that I can unhaul it if I don't read it, which is probably a sign that I should just unhaul it, but we'll give it a go. I'll read the first chapter at least, because otherwise it's not fair. I've spent money on it, and for what, you know? So anyway, and then the final one is one that is like the complete opposite, because it's a 5-star prediction, so a book I'm really excited about, and I have got Beyond the Black Door by A.M. Strickland. Now I read In the Ravenous Dark and just absolutely adored it, and Molly did this for their book club pick a few months ago and also really enjoyed it. We have very, very similar tastes when it comes to things like this, so I am hyped for this book. I think it's going to be great. I know very little about it other than that these people move through doors. I think they're in like people's minds, but you have to avoid the black door right up until she doesn't. So yeah, really, really intrigued by this one. So yeah, that is my TBR for Book Wanderers. I'm trying a new angle. I've got a new tripod and it can actually extend far higher than my last one did, which was precarious at eye level, whereas this one is slightly above, which is why you're looking at me at this angle, which I'm hoping is going to be a better angle and less of the, you know, but anyway, so let me know what you think, because looking up feels weird to me. Just let me know in the comments what, like, I don't care about what you think of my books, because I'll read them or I won't, but just, you know, what do you think of this? How does this feel to you? And other than that, have a nice day.